welcome to the Chile Today podcast. I'm Bethany Francis.
And I'm Lenny Kluge.
We're two immigrants living in Chile talking about Chilean news, cultural events, travel, business, and more.
If you want to support our podcast, check out our Patreon at www.patreon.com/The Chile Today Podcast. That's one word. www.patreon.com/The Chile Today Podcast.
Hey, Lenny, how you doing?
hey, at least I didn't say http://
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, he's such an old man. We redid our intro, if you haven't noticed, and he repeated the website for the Patreon twice, which is great.
But
it's
this thing that is, I don't know if you heard it. It's the internet.
It's one word. I'm
it's
like,
on the
no
internet.
shit.
Well, I could have underscores or whatever.
But you would have said underscore.
You would have said, your face would have said, leave me alone.
God. She bangs. Oh, baby, and she moves.
Right.
Which is just describing how Lenny cannot stop banging things on the table when we're trying to talk.
That's how I roll.
Okay,
this
it's
is getting out of hand.
It's been a long time, hasn't it, Lenny?
Oh, wow, that's uncalled for, isn't it, Bethany?
I mean, I think you called for it, to be fair.
I mean, it's been a long time since I banged bottles on the table, yeah.
Anyway, how are you?
I'm good. I think I told you before, I'm catching up on... Actually, I finished this third season of Snowpiercer today, which is very apropos of what we're talking about. So, did you watch that?
Isn't Sean Bean in the second season?
Yeah.
I haven't finished Snowpiercer. I just know Sean Bean is in the second season, and he's like the celebrity that has the most deaths on screen. He's died, I think, 43 times on screen.
Yeah. That's actually, I think yesterday I saw a petition that he was just like, please don't kill me anymore.
I'm
not going to tell you about... I'm not going to spoil the third
All I know is that both Lafayette and...
his name is David Diggs, but yeah.
Yeah, Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson are both in that movie.
Hold on, who played Thomas Jefferson in the...
They both he played both Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson in Hamilton.
He did?
Yeah, he's the same person.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Act 1 and Act 2. You don't have to pay more than one actor. It's a thing that happens.
Crazy.
It's crazy. It's super crazy. So,
so
events.
Take two.
We mention events because for most of these events, our patrons either get in for free or discounts. So we want to make sure you guys get the first noticias, the first news of these events. Also, for a lot of events, especially our pub quizzes, they sell out. And we have a capacity. So...
You do have capacity.
We have capacity, and it always sells out. So we're giving you the news before anybody else. If you guys, want to join the Patreon and get in for a big discount, or get your reservations early. So, because y'all special. Anyway, the next pub quiz, which is a bilingual pub quiz, we have rounds in English and Spanish.
And even if the round is in English and you don't understand it, we can repeat the question in Spanish.
It's super fun. It's super fun. That's the reason it sells out. It's super fun. And me and Pinguino and Lenny are usually involved in writing the questions and things like that. Anyway, you can have a team of up to 4 people. It's 10,000 pesos per team. It's super fun. If you want to make a reservation for that, you can you can message us on our Instagram, or you can contact the Chistolas directly at thechistolas@gmail.com. And it's a lot of fun. So that's on the 18th of June at 8 p.m. at the Black Rock Pub. And I think there's another event coming up soon after that.
No, actually,
or before that.
Yes,
Oh, my bad.
The Horrible Movie Night on Thursday 16th. That's 2 days before the pub quiz. Long-time listeners already know what we're talking about. It's a night where we watch a horrible movie. Very self-descriptive. I don't know, did we already pick the movie for this time?
We are watching Mystery Men, and if you don't know what that is, it's like
it's
horrible.
Zombie Jesus?
No.
I mean, since it's Corpus Christi, no?
No, we did do Hamlet 2 a few months ago. Last month was Spice World.
Yeah.
It's like movies that you love to hate / you hate to love, you know what I'm saying?
No,
and Mystery Men's one of those that I grew up, I really loved it. It's horrible, but I love it. And if you don't know, it's about a ragtag team of superheroes. One guy, his superpower is just that he has a shovel, and he's really good about hitting people with a shovel. And then one guy's superpower is he just gets really, really, really angry all the time. And that's just their superpowers. It's so bad.
I would fit right in there. You know, my superpower would be of always standing in the way. That's like my superpower.
Right. My superpower is I can always tell when somebody, like my useless superpower is I can always tell when somebody on a TV show is pregnant before before anybody. Like they're like, no. Like I remember Mao has seen Friends about 500 times. And I was watching the last episode, which I'm not a huge Friends person, but I was like, I didn't realize that the actress who played Monica is pregnant in the last episode. And he was like, no, she's not. I'm like, no, she's obviously pregnant. And it's like,
look at her.
And I'm like that for anyway. That's my really useless superpower.
We should team up and fight crime, I guess.
We should team up and just annoy people.
Yeah, you'd probably be better at that than fighting crime, but yeah, you know.
So anyway, the Horrible Movie Night is on the 16th at 8 p.m. also at the Black Rock Pub.
At the Black Rock, which by the way is a great place. You should not only go to for events, you should
Best
also have
churiana in the city.
The lunch is pretty solid there.
They have a Chilean menu at lunch.
Fish and chips, man. You don't really get this at a lot of places.
No, it's real good. We know the owner Shane. He's a super nice guy.
It's a cozy bar.
It's a pub. So like a nice little British pub. If that's your style, that's your flow.
Don't tell him that you said British pub because
I know,
he's
I'm sorry,
Australian.
he's Australian, but it's like it's at that feel. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, he got the wood paneling and all that thing.
Right. So the Horrible Movie Night is free, but if you're a patron, you get also a free beer.
Yep.
So there you go. Join our Patreon.
Come and ruin us.
It's at the $5 level. Like I mean that it pays for itself. You know? Did you say moon us?
No, you did come and ruin us. Ruin, as in financially ruin. No,
I don't understand what you're saying.
No, never mind then.
Okay, so there's one more event that we're going to talk about. What is it?
Yes, it is. It would be an affiliate event, if you will. We are not directly involved with that, but good friends of ours, they are, and I don't know why I just talk like Yoda. On June 23rd, storytelling in Santiago there is.
Yeah, so it's an event called Storytelling, and it's where it's in English, and people get up on stage and tell stories about their lives. They have a theme every month. I'm not sure what this month's theme is.
I just looked at it literally an hour ago.
I'm literally going to look it up.
It's impossible, I think. That's the theme.
Impossible is the theme. So it's people like write and present stories in English about like things that happen. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're sad. It's like kind of a therapeutic way for people to like get things out sometimes, or just like make people laugh. It's really fun. Cry. If you want to go watch it, it's a free event, and that's at Fiddler's Irish Pub. So there you go. Those are the events we have. If you are hosting an event, or if you want us to advertise, contact us. We want people to get involved, to have things to do, have fun things to do in the city. So just contact us at our Instagram at Chile Today Podcast.
Exactly, that's what we're here for. Getting the info out to the peoples.
News. That means the news section starting. Yeah. So you got COVID updates.
Effect. Yeah, as usual. I wonder if people get tired of this whole thing.
They're like, oh my God, more COVID.
I mean, like we've all gotten tired of COVID.
To be fair, if you live in Chile, it's quite useful because everything changes every week.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like it's not like I feel like, again, I don't live in the U.S. or other countries, but at least the perception everything moves slower in other countries. It's like, but here every week something changes.
Yeah, but that also might be because like we're a little bit more aware of the news cycle and everything.
That's what I'm saying, because I don't live in those countries.
No, but I mean the news cycle here. Like if you wouldn't follow the news as closely as we do, because that kind of comes with the territory, you know what I'm saying? Like there wasn't a lot of things that have happened that would really impact you in a meaningful way, but it's still good to know about these things.
So anyway, COVID updates.
It's laying on me. So as of today, Wednesday, May 25th, we got 6,010 new cases, which is not good. Yeah, we are definitely climbing again. The positivity rate is at 10.19%. Check back 2 weeks ago, last time we recorded, we were at 6.07%, and right now, just in the metropolitan region, it's at 14.7%. So, which makes sense because we're a densely populated piece of land here. So,
we're a densely populated piece of land.
So in the metropolitan region alone, cases have actually more than tripled in the last 3 weeks. And since there's really no good database on this, I went through the reports from the health ministry of the last 14 days and compared the development of the positivity rate with the development of the ICU occupation, because, hard-hitting journalism is what we do here.
Hard-hitting. Hard, so hard.
Yep, and actually it turns out that even though the positivity rate is rising, the ICU occupation is on a downward trend, which is good news, because if it stays like that, I think we probably don't have to be worried about like stricter measures. On the
Because
contrary,
we're in the intermediate right now, and the Valparaiso region also just went into the intermediate.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think if anything, they might loosen up restrictions a little bit, or maybe just change this whole thing. But I don't really see that we're gonna go to like the red level anytime soon.
No. I think we might. I knock on fucking wood.
Yeah,
I
no
think
kidding.
we might be done with phase one situation. Well, I mean, we're never gonna have another phase one the way we used to.
Yeah, no.
Where
no.
we're not, because that's just not in the phase,
Yeah.
like in the
And you can't really
patterns
justify that
anymore.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, not with the amount of people vaccinated. You should get your vaccination. There are still people getting confused if it's their turn. It's probably your turn to get vaccinated. If you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s and up, yes, it's your turn to get your fourth dose, as long as it's been, I think, 6 months since you got. Check the dates, but
Yeah.
it's probably your turn.
Because if you haven't, by the time you listen to this, you might be like a couple of days away from having your mobility pass.
Right, June 4th, isn't it?
June 1st, I think.
June 1st.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said 4th. June 1st, the mobility passes are starting to get frozen if you don't have your second booster, fourth dose.
Yeah,
We're
so
just
confusing.
cuarto dosis
Yeah.
in Chile.
Yeah, right.
So keep that in mind.
You're right, yeah. So as I was saying, it's probably gonna get less strict instead of stricter. However, I do think they will keep on pushing the vaccination campaign, because this right now is still a point of concern, because there are still many people behind on the booster shots, the first and the second. So actually, as it stands on Tuesday, May 17th, it was announced that 2.4 million people have not received their second booster shot. I think it was the second and the first actually together. So I did the math on that, and it's about 16% of the target group, which basically means that if we're like at, I don't know, man, 90%, like, just deduct 16 from that, and that's the vaccination rate that we have right now.
Right.
Math. The leaderboard here is headed by the metropolitan region again, with like 39% of the people that are still not up to date with the shots. That is a lot, And this especially affects the age group between 18 and 29 years, of which only 12% have so far received the second booster shot, according to information on May 16th. And now, I couldn't find any hard data on this, but I read that in several places that most, and if not all, people that were in the ICU because of COVID-19 were not up to date with their shots. So the vaccination does work. So
I also read that.
Get that.
I read that in Chile, and also read that in other countries as well. Like, for example, like in the US, they don't have the fourth dose, but the people in the ICU are people who have not had their booster shots.
Like the grand majority of people.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you.
There are always breakthroughs, but this is the minority.
No, I have a student actually who got his fourth dose on last Thursday, and on Saturday showed symptoms of COVID.
No.
And had COVID, but at that rate, he got COVID before he got his booster shot.
And also, like, the shot needs like 1 or 2 days to really just.
Oh yeah, but the way that timeline works, like he got it, like
really
he
bad.
was exposed
bad luck.
before he got his shot.
Yeah.
So really bad luck.
Right.
But I mean, actually, I know a lot more people, as far as like people close to me getting COVID, because my friends were very, very like, during like the beginning of COVID and all these things, very, very safe, like making sure they weren't going to a lot of events. And now, because we're now more comfortable going to bigger events, my friends, or like the people I know that we used to not go to anything, are now more exposed. So it's interesting, but like they're all fine. Like none of them have bad symptoms because they all got their 3 or 4 shots.
Yeah, that's all. This whole thing with the mask mandate, because you don't have to wear the mask outside anymore. I mean, think about it. You're into a restaurant, and basically you just put on the mask to go in, and then you sit down, and then you take off the mask again. So people just be like, why bother? Which I absolutely get, but of course, that kind of.
To go to the bathrooms, that makes sense to me. Wear your mask when you go to the bathroom.
Yeah, but if you go outside for some reason, I don't have a smoke. If you're leaving, it's like, why would I put on the mask for these couple of minutes? I mean, I know that you should, but right. I get what people are thinking, So yeah, but
it depends on where you are, because then again, people are very simple, right? Because you have to say inside. If you're like inside, but malls, but not this, but not that, it's too confusing. So it's way easier to just be like inside.
Inside.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, gotcha.
Because, I mean, it's like, it's probably not useful that I feel comforted wearing my mask in a movie theater when everybody's pulled it down to eat popcorn anyway, including myself. but I do feel better.
I guess it's kind of like a placebo for you.
I don't know.
Man.
I just feel safer. That's what I'm trying to say.
But yeah, vaccines work. So I think it's good news then that Sinovac has actually started with the construction of their first vaccine plant in Latin America, in the district of Quilicura.
Yep.
They started doing that, and it's supposed to be finished before 2023, which is a pretty tight timeline if you ask me.
They've had plans for this for a while though, for like at least a year.
Yeah, but I mean, if they just started constructing, I mean, it's not just a
it
house.
It is China though.
I mean, yeah, it was actually. I was like, thinking about the same thing.
China can do it in like a day and a half.
Yeah, but that would be China in China, because they rely on the local workforce here and local labor laws.
Maybe they.
I was like, what do you mean I can't have them work 24/7?
They have Chinese factories in the U.S. where they literally have people from China work there because it's more efficient.
Yeah, but
I'm not joking.
I got you, but they still have to adhere to labor laws.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sure, but again, like...
I mean, why do you think, like, things in China get done so quickly?
No, I'm not saying that, like, okay, yes, but at the same time, Chileans being Chileans is what I'm trying to say. I love you, Chile. I'm just saying, like, we all know the way that our Chilean brethren, how they work sometimes. The Pinguino has given me an eye. You're procrastinators. You are. You're gonna deny it, Pinguino.
Don't upset him. All the podcast
the
podcast gonna come out like in 2 weeks, man.
So, anywho.
So it's right. So it's supposed to be finished before 2023, and it's supposed to have a capacity of more than 50 million doses per year, but not only against COVID-19, but also hepatitis A and the flu
and the monkeypox.
Right. And no, not the monkeypox yet, but yeah, gotta get to that.
So,
but things are, in terms of infection positivity rate, things are not looking too bright. So this is why another 33 districts across 5 regions are going back from the green to the yellow sanitary phase as of Thursday.
Phase. Oh.
Sanitary impact phase.
I heard cemetery. I was like, no.
Yeah, that would be the red one.
That's the red
the black
phase.
one. The cemetery phase.
That's when we all have to go back into phase 1 and like stay.
Oh boy, so sad. Yeah, but they're going back to the yellow sanitary phase, the medium impact sanitary phase, as of Thursday 26th, which as of the day of this recording is tomorrow, right? And as if we didn't have to worry enough about everything already, as you just mentioned, we got the monkeypox coming our way, but the health ministry has announced that they're already hard at work to be able to deal with this and should be ready to respond within the next couple of days. Argentina already has reported their first possible case, so it's not too far away from us.
Yeah,
but it's not confirmed, but they were like, we're suspicious, that might be it. Now, that being said, pretty much all the experts agree that there's really no need to panic, because the monkeypox are not nearly as transmissible as the SARS-2 virus, and not that fatal if you get it. Like, people go like, oh my god, you get the monkeypox, you die. Not really.
No.
And moreover, you could
pox,
also
right?
it's a bit more. It's like we are a mismatched host, I think somebody said, because it's actually made for rats and monkeys, so it doesn't really bloom in humans as it should, as like the human pox would be, which were declared extinct in 1977, I think.
You mean like smallpox?
I think that was it. The smallpox, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was like kind of like the virus tailored to the human body, if you will. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
And then we had vaccines, and it disappeared. See, vaccines work, bitches.
Vaccines. So monkeypox, not nice if you get it, but you don't necessarily die. And you could also make the argument that we've never been more prepared to deal with something like that than right now at this moment, because we're still in full-on pandemic mode. So just bring it.
We should still be full-on pandemic mode.
But at least the governments are just like, okay, we know what to do now.
With eyeballs right there.
We got PCRs, we got masks, we got all the things, plants and shit.
Plants, house plants
and stuff.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, awesome. COVID, woohoo! Right.
Is that what you got? Okay, so, we are before the last episode. Since then, they have finished the Constitution, which we will have an entire episode on the Constitution, specifically. First draft, yeah. Right, obviously. The first draft. And a lot of things are being released. And major investment banks have weighed in on the first draft of the Constitution, which is extremely important.
With its 499 articles. Which
499,
really
not 500.
Me the wrong way.
499. Just to rub Lenny the wrong way.
Yeah.
That's the reason they did it. So, so we have the first draft, and they have 7 thematic commissions releasing this first draft, and it contains, as he said, 499 articles, and it actually may end up being one of the world's longest constitutions, apparently.
Yeah.
So, and so they're thinking that they're going to be able to fine tune it, so maybe you'll get a more round number there.
That's the thing. People are sorry, but people like on social media, friends of mine, are just like, you do yourself a favor, download the draft, read it. I'm just like, it's 499 art. Like, come on.
I mean, I guess gonna vote for it anyway. So whatever.
I guess I will eventually. It's just like, I mean, I want to know what I vote for.
Sure. Okay, so so as I said, at the moment, it is the world's longest. It exceeds Bolivia's, which actually is 411, and then it also exceeds...
That's the only reason they did it.
We have to beat Bolivia.
Yeah, exactly.
Take their land, beat them. And then it actually even beats, quote, legendary constitution of India, which is at 466.
I can already imagine China be like, what? We got to do something about this. We need to have a longer constitution.
Does China, I mean, I'm not asking this in an ironic way. I really don't know. Does China have a constitution? Like, what would they name their Magna Carta?
I don't know. But China had always had these things like, oh, no, we got to be the biggest, the largest, the fastest, whatever.
Oh, they probably just don't care because they're like, we have one party and we don't need it.
What? We got constipation.
Communistism.
Yeah. Pinguino just gave a thumbs up. China does have a constitution. 2 pages
How
long.
many articles does it have, Pinguino? Okay, so as I was saying before Penguin interrupted me with the 138
now you know
thingy mabobbers that
China's
constitution has. Okay, so major investment firms, JP Morgan and Morgan & Stanley, both released their own assessment of the constitutional draft. Morgan Stanley said that it focuses on, quote, higher levels of structural fiscal spending and closer regulatory scrutiny on corporations, especially on the environmental front, though without disruptive outcome to the country's macro framework. This is really important. They are sending out...
It absolutely makes sense. It tracks, you know?
It totally tracks with what we've been talking about. Yeah. Because, again, it's moving very much forward to how Europe is, like, aiming a lot of their policies and without upsetting the banks, right?
Yeah,
like,
and again, I said it before, good luck investing here if the streets are burning.
Yeah, no, and
this is not going to happen.
And again,
by which I mean, if we didn't have this new constitution chugging along,
right? You know? And the which makes for the people who are so like determined to vote rechazo, I don't understand. Like, I really don't understand why. Yeah, like, I'm not trying to say I would like to understand why. If you are somebody who is planning to vote rechazo, can you tell me?
Yes, please.
Why? Because I am only seeing really good things from both sides. Both, you know, like, they're trying to continue to make investments possible in a very, like, in a capitalist way, but also opening up the door for changes if they need to exist, right? I don't understand. I don't understand how anybody could be against this unless they were just really...
Right. I mean, that's actually good,
like,
call for action.
politically...
If you want to vote rechazo and you have a good please don't just say because communism, because that's not a reason. If you have a really good reason, just write.
If you don't like Boric, if you're like...
gmail.com or on Facebook or whatever.
Baton Culiao, that's not a reason. I want to know a reason, and we would love to know it so that we can be... Pinguino just typed freedom. Freedom's the reason. Which doesn't make any sense because this is a constitutional, one of the most constitutional democratic constitutions in the world, right? The previous constitution was written in the dictatorship.
Right.
So, like, freedom, this is freedom.
You know, I'm just going to say, like, the thing is, like, if you ask me right now if you're going to vote for rechazo, it's like, I don't know yet because I don't know. I haven't read this thing yet. Like, because, of course, I want to read this thing, you know?
Sure.
And I want to make for my own opinion about this, but that's the thing. I want to get into the subject matter first and then decide. Like, I'm not at this point right now where I say, just like, I'm going to vote rechazo because X.
I don't understand anybody who at this point, or...
Because, you know, if it turns out...
so determined to vote rechazo.
Exactly. I mean, if I read it and then it turns out it's like, holy shit, no, that...
they're eating babies.
I don't know, you know, it's just like, maybe I have reasons to vote rechazo, but...
The 499th was the one where they eat babies. Oh, no.
Maybe the fifth under.
You have to read all the way to the end. All the way to the end.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's just like, okay, I want to form my own opinion, and maybe there is something in there where I just go like, okay, this is not good. I doubt it, honestly, but that's the thing. I rather think and inform myself before I speak up there.
Sure, but then there's something that I was talking about with one of my students, and one of my students is like, it worries me because sometimes people see one thing they don't like in the new constitution, and they're like, well, I'm just not going to vote for it. And it's like, okay, you're probably not going to agree with 100% of the Constitution because people have different political leanings.
Yeah.
People have different ideas. But there's so much more that you could say is wrong with the old Constitution. So you have to weigh that. You can't just say it's not perfect, I therefore don't want it.
Yeah, it's a typical the devil you know situation,
Right, but it's like it's literally the devil that you know.
And also, it just stopped working as of 2019. We saw that.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't anyway, continue with banks.
Well, that could be a whole podcast episode. And that will
literally be a whole
podcast episode.
Okay, so both the investment firms, the JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley, highlighted in the reports, because they released reports. Feel free to go read those on your own time if you don't believe me. The minimal changes in new constitution makes towards the operating framework of the central bank. So the new draft permits the central bank to maintain its autonomy, but it calls to increase the number of board members to 7 from its current 5. In addition, these members are to be appointed by the president, and Congress may request the dismissal of members through a majority vote.
I see checks and balances there.
Yeah, checks and balances. Checks out. That tracks. On the topic of political rights, the plenum, what's that?
Oh, the plenum. It's like a...
the organization,
like a caucus, I would say.
Yeah, so the office of Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan, they do not like the language which gives full equality on the topic of political parties and political independent organizations. But as to social rights, Morgan Stanley stated that, quote, the draft articles for the new constitution set out a meaningful expansion of social rights. The draft emphasizes the transition of the provisions of healthcare, education, social security, and housing from the private sector to the state for the provision. JP Morgan's report shared the shift in polls over the support for the newly drafted constitution, noting that the weekly CADEM, which is the survey, slightly, probably corrupt, survey organization in Chile, continued to show that the no vote still had a lead with 46% of those in the polls, but had lost 2% since the week before. Meanwhile, the percentage of those in favor of the new constitution has climbed to 38% in a gain of 3%. Now, again, CADEM has been largely corrupted, and they have an agenda. So keep that in mind.
But you could also make the point that if they really had the agenda, then they would probably paint the approval in a more favorable light so that people would stay at home who were to vote for the... Oh, no, they can't stay at home. It's a
mandatory vote. It's a mandatory vote.
So yeah,
there you
scheming
go.
Machiavelli.
Yeah, so anyway, Morgan Stanley's report underscored the obvious. If the new constitution is rejected, it will lead to a renewed risk of social unrest.
Yeah.
Within the country, which means investments are down. Yeah. Nobody wants to invest in a country that is extremely volatile.
Right.
So most people on the outside of Chile really are rooting for this constitution for the stability it could create.
Yeah.
Because again, it was the same thing we were talking about during the elections of Boric versus Kast. It's like, oh, Kast, you want peace? If he wins, the city of Santiago will burn to the ground. It will. And so it's kind of like people marched and sacrificed and voted. How many votes have we had on this freaking thing? And if it loses, imagine, I can't even think about, that's gonna just be chaos. And we'll keep you right here informed on the Chile Today podcast.
From our bunker.
Yeah. However, with 16% voters in the CADEM survey reporting as undecided, the coming weeks leave the door open to either the acceptance or rejection of the draft. And the vote is going to be on the 4th of September. And that's a big thing now that it has actually been released as far as what is in it. And there is, because I think you and I talked about there was a lot of mystery behind like what was going on, what's in it, what are the decisions that are actually been made, and now it's out there. I think a lot of people are going to be more comfortable being like, okay, I see this now. This is not crazy leftist propaganda or whatever. This seems more reasonable because the government is putting a lot of stuff out there, like putting articles side by side, showing you the difference.
Not the government, the Constitutional Convention.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Again.
No, I mean that's a big difference.
No. The only thing is I have very weird lines because I'm only like I'm literally one person removed from the president / not one person removed from people that work in government. So when I see one of my friends post something, no, I know I'm important, right? my fiance won't let me invite Boric to the wedding because he was like, if he actually came, which he might, because a lot of our friends were from him, it'll be a very big distraction for you.
A big distraction, like... and like also maybe extra cost there, and you know.
Oh yeah, with security and stuff. No, that was so anyway. So, what was I saying? Brag. Oh, so when my friends post things, I sometimes get confused whether they're posts from the government or posts just from my friends.
And then you just like spew government
because
secrets.
also like certain diputados get to post their own things, and they're representatives from the government, and they post like if they're supporters of the Constitution, they post their own stuff. So, anyway.
Yeah. That's a thing which I think like somebody has to step up. I started following this guy. What's his face? Rodrigo Mayorga, I think. He does a podcast also, like on the whole Constitution, political podcast, smart guy. And he also said like there's fake news abound. And I think we talked about this before, that the Constitutional Convention, be it of their own fault or not, has really not done a great job communicating this whole thing. No. And
but I think that's getting better.
And now that has to get better now.
But I think it is, at least from what I have seen this past week, since they were like, it's ready. Like, just so much out there, like, comparing the two documents, like, side by side, showing you what the old document said and showing you what the... Oh, yeah. Well, I will be happy
no, I haven't seen that.
Oh, you don't follow my Instagram?
I do follow Instagram.
It's on my stories. There's like literally one on my stories today.
Really? I'll check it.
Yeah, and I'll send you different ones because they have different where they show them side by side because some of them are similar. Because that's the thing is, no one's saying, or it's not correct to say that every single thing in the previous Constitution was horrible. It's saying like, look, there needs to be tweaks. And so looking at it side by side, look at what has been tweaked. Look at why. Like, why would they add that specific language here? Because
right. You're saying that they actually basically kind of copy-pasted a lot of things from the old. Yeah, which
on some things, and then
it's also
added
like very
some
plain
language.
vanilla. You know, at some point it's just like, I don't know, man. We're talking about... I don't know, the norms for glass bottles. I don't know if that's in the Constitution, but it's just like, really, why would you want to change that? It's not really like...
Or the wording is important, and it shows you why it's important. So, for example, the previous Constitution guarantees the... What is it? How is it worded? It guarantees... I don't exactly know how it's worded, but it like guarantees the opportunity to have an education, but does not guarantee education.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
While the new Constitution makes sure to specify that every Chilean child is guaranteed an education.
Socialism intensifies.
I know, because the manipulation of those words there in the old Constitution meant like it actually the government has no obligation to make sure a child goes to school. It's just like, oh well, the school is there. It's your problem if you can't afford to go. You know, or you can't pay for it.
Well, but I'm glad that there is actually more communication out there because I mean, in a way,
it's only been this week. It's like if you haven't been on the internet in 4 days,
I can't blame the people to just be a little like insecure because I mean, like the whole constitutional process has been one big dumpster fire. Just because that's the first time that they've done this, and it's just like. Most of the times they didn't even know themselves what they were doing. And I think they'd be the first one.
Right? You know, that's our
perception. I think they would be the first one to admit it too. You know, there was a lot of try and error there.
I mean, I really don't know. You could totally be right. But this just happened. So if you have been, not on the internet in 4 days, you've probably missed a lot because a lot of the stuff is being put out there. And a lot of people are saying, like, these are the 5 main reasons why the new Constitution's better. Here, look at these articles right next to each other. Again, we are going to cover this on an entire, article, not necessarily article, but we're not going to cover 499 articles, but we're going to cover the
Get ready
main
for a 10-parter.
Get ready for a 10-parter. I mean, we have until September. So anyway, we're going to cover the main things that you guys want to hear about: education, security, indigenous rights, environment, like, the main things with that and how they compare to the old. And, hopefully we'll learn things together. And if you're on the fence, if you're leaning rechazo and you don't, maybe you'll get more strong in that, or maybe you'll reconsider, whatever. We're not here to convince anybody. We're here to do our thing, and because we love Chile. So there's that.
We're doing our thing.
Yeah. What's your next thingy?
All right. Okay. Araucanía. You can't leave this place alone for 2 weeks and things are going to happen.
No, I mean, again, listen to our episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, I doubt this is going to be it's going to still be in the same vein.
Yeah, I mean, I've not really have included Araucanía in the news section last week because we talked about it a lot, but like there has been a lot of development in the past couple of weeks, so let me just try to sum this up. Now, because the violence in the so-called southern macro zone has really not let up, and on the contrary, it actually has really flared up again since the Boric administration lifted the state of emergency back in March. The government initially had the idea to decree an quote-unquote like intermediate emergency state or intermediate exception state. Let's call it emergency state in the Araucanía region. And whatever that was supposed to be anyway, because like there is no such thing. There's like, because estado de excepción, emergency state.
They just didn't want to have the same
Yeah, no,
name.
I get it. It's just like also like estado de excepción, there are different emergency states. So there's no such thing as an immediate emergency state. It was just a weird thing. And that was like almost immediately met by a fiery declaration by the CAM leader Héctor Yaitul that they would, and I quote, prepare their forces and organize armed resistance. And a few days after Mr. Yaitul's call to arms, the Social Development and Family Minister Janet Vega confirmed in a TV interview that the government would bring an indictment against Mr. Yaitul.
Cool.
Only to have Subsecretary of the Interior Manuel Monsalve contradict her 2 days later by affirming that they would not take any legal action.
Jesus.
Now, the District Attorney Office of the Araucanía region wasn't too happy about this because they can't head off an investigation against Mr. Yaitul if the government doesn't take action. And Mr. Monsalve, on the other hand, said that the DA's office could just reopen investigations based on indictments filed back in 2016, 2018 against Mr. Yaitul, but the DA's office insists that this is a different animal and there need to be a new indictment based on the notorious security law, so they can't really move, which is just like, it's a thing. Like, they can't do anything, and one person says one thing, the other person, it's just chaos. So eventually what the government did is they discarded the idea of this intermediate emergency state, and they decided to reinstate the quote-unquote proper emergency state in the region, albeit in a much curtailed capacity, as the army is only supposed to guard main transport routes and is not allowed to enter any villages. So they kind of like put the shackles on that one. Now, this has actually been met with a solid approval rating of 77% compared to 55% when Piñera decreed the state of emergency in October 21, which is really not much of a big surprise because A, fuck Piñera, and B, you could say that Piñera was a bit more proactive while Boric was more reactive. That is to say that people could actually see a surge in incidents when Boric ended the state of emergency in March.
There's like a step up there. This like, let's try to do this, and then they threaten, and Boric doing what a lot of people think a government should do, is reacting to a threat rather than just being like, oh, potential threat.
Right. And you could also, now you could make the case maybe Piñera did the right thing, but you didn't know it back then, right?
Right.
Like, whether you agree or not, but right now, like, Boric was like, let's do it away, then things got to shit again. He was like, okay, maybe not.
Right, because there's a difference there, right? It's like reacting to... There's a lot to be said of like for human history being like, oh, well, I mean, I'm making a really swathing comparison that is definitely not the same. But like, invading Iraq when there was actually no reason to invade Iraq because we thought there were potentially weapons of mass destruction. It's like, you know what? Maybe we should have perhaps waited a little bit to see if this was a real...
Iraq.
Yeah. Oh my God. I cannot believe that happened. And by I cannot believe, I mean, it totally... Of course it happened.
It had to happen.
It happened.
It's Bush after all. But yeah, so that was met with a approval of 77%. However, 85% of the poll population also agrees that Boric's move came way too late. Now, at the same time, the government strategy of appeasement is really taking shape, as Boric presented a catalogue of projects that the government dubbed the Plan Buen Vivir, or good living, good coexisting, if you will. First, the government actually appointed a Mapuche to lead the CONADI, which is the Corporación Nacional de Desarrollo Indígena, or National Corporation for Indigenous Development, Mr. Luis Alberto Penchuelo. Second, which, I mean, makes sense because, duh, he's Mapuche. Second, they effectively are doubling CONADI's budget to a total of 35 billion pesos, which is, funnily enough, exactly $42 million. I just did the conversion today, like to the digit. It was like, how did that even happen? So yeah, that was kind of
Jesus.
weird.
I made that job.
So
I'm in the wrong
so
field, though it wouldn't matter. I'm not Mapuche.
These 35 billions are meant for land buybacks of 39 sites across more than 20 Mapuche communities.
Okay, that makes sense. You're buying back land. He's not like pocketing that shit and being like,
bye.
Yeah, like this is not. Yeah, I know. Like, oh my god. Yeah. Okay, I thought it was just like, hey, this is mine now. Okay, no, I get you.
Yeah, no, that was double because it used to be 16 million every year, and then they were like, oh, let's double this. Okay, now it should be noted. Now it should be noted that this is actually not a huge increase, more than a redirection of funds, because the overall budget that has already been approved for 2022 was 66 billion, of which 47 billion were supposed to be spent on subsidies, which is like subsidies for like education, business development, like training people to set up their own business and stuff like that. And the remaining 19 billion were meant for buybacks. Now we're talking about 35 billion. So
because they were already allocated. So
well, they basically did a reallocation of funds. They are now investing more into buybacks than into subsidies. Whether this is a good idea or not, that's that's a different.
But that's happening now.
Yeah, that is happening now.
Okay.
Right. Now, also, you can say that since the return to democracy in the 90s, the governments have in total spent a total of 510 billion pesos on such buybacks, which I did the math there again because apparently I'm the math guy. This averages out to about 16 billion per year, which makes sense because
it's much more economical just not to murder and take people's land in the first place.
Yeah, but the things that there hasn't been any increase of this line item over the past 30 years, which is also something that you need to talk about. It has always been every year on average 60 million. So yeah, I guess it's about time that they increase this.
Oh yeah.
So kind of like doubling this thing's kind of a big deal, even though it's at the cost of subsidies, Now, by judging by Mr. Penchuelos, who is the head of the CONADI, by judging by his comments,
Panuelo,
it appears that as if the government really hasn't hammered things out with the forestry companies yet. He said that, and I quote, "The forestry companies need to retreat one way or the other, but returning the land that is being claimed by the indigenous communities has its base in historical and legal documentation." Now, if you ask me, it's kind of a flimsy comment there because, the forestry companies, they're going to make this really expensive for the government. They're going to make them pay, So I feel that there is still a negotiation to be had. I mean, it's great that you have the money for buybacks, but you need to get them to sell first, Third thing about the whole appeasement strategy is that the very same week, and that also came together with a formal announcement of reinstating the state of emergency in the region, the Minister of the Interior, Itzkia Siches, announced that her ministry would invest more than 400 billions. I sound like Carl Sagan here, like billions and billions. 400 billions because they say 400 mil millones, which
makes no sense.
Why don't they just use billion? But okay, would invest more than 400 billion pesos in the Araucanía and the Biobío regions, chiefly for infrastructure projects. She also mentioned that she wants to dust off like a bill for a law that would allow the creation of a ministry for indigenous people. And lastly, she announced that the government is in conversations with the UN to help them mediate talks with the Mapuche communities, which ironically is something that Hector Yaitul suggested in the first place, but right now he's not willing to talk at all. Like, remember, I think we talked about this in the Araucanía conflict.
Right.
Because he was just like, well, just ask the UN to help out, And now they're like, hey, how about we do that? It was like, great idea. But now that guy doesn't want to talk anymore, so that's kind of a conundrum. It's a conundrum. So also, the Buen Vivir plan.
Very, very. If you don't know what we're talking about, it's such a very complex.
It is. Now,
at this point.
Hold on. The Buen Vivir plan, it also includes the creation of territorial parliaments in the region to foster dialogue between indigenous people and the central government. Now, not sure how that would fit into the existing frame of legislature here, or if at all, but it's a thing. So they're moving. Sorry, you were saying?
Oh, nothing.
Oh, no, fine. Okay, because look, I got some thoughts here. Bear with me here. I got get ready, take a seat, buckle up.
I'm already sitting.
So, look, I feel here that the government seems to have all the right intentions, but really doesn't seem to find the footing, you know? Because when Boric ended the state of emergency in March, his administration should have had a comprehensive plan on how to solve this whole clusterfuck in the Araucanía region, ready at the very moment, but they didn't. But the first and only attempted peace talks, quote unquote, really failed miserably when Isquiasiches was met with gunfire in Temoquiqui a few months ago. You remember that?
Somebody
like
shot at her.
that went sideways, you know? And
well, then again, maybe you have to sidestep, right? So, like, being devil's advocate on the other side is saying, like, maybe they had a plan and then suddenly somebody shot at their minister and they're like, you know what? New plan.
Yeah, but maybe that wasn't really a good plan, or they haven't really communicated
right,
that
or
before. But that's
again,
the thing. It's about, like, communicating this before. You can't just... I mean, I wouldn't have expected her to get shot at either, but in a way, it's just like, okay... But
they're starting from, I mean, again, it's like the idea of like starting from scratch, right? Because ever since this Mapuche conflict has sort of existed, there has been so much resistance against them that now we're like, okay, now let's try to work with them. And it's the first time anybody's trying to work with them. And there's the plan, it's going to be go back to the drawing board a couple times. It makes sense that they're going to go back to the drawing board a couple times. At least to me, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Is that ideal?
Like, honestly, I just got the feeling that they were kind of like winging it at this moment, which was not ideal because he had already lifted the state of emergency. Now, it seems like that only now.
None of my friends work in that particular sector.
Right.
So.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, but it seems that
so
only now a comprehensive action plan is actually coming together. That what I was just talking about, the whole Buen Vivir thing, like, you know, allocating more funds to the CONADI, creating these territorial parliaments, etc., etc., etc. Like, ironically, that happened at the same time that Boric declared another state of emergency, you know, and I would argue that this back and forth caused him a lot more political damage than had he just maintained the original state of emergency with a justification that they're just taking the office and need some time to come up with an action plan.
However, you say that, and yet his numbers of approval rating, according to Kadem, have risen since he has declared the state of emergency.
Maybe because of the state of emergency, but they also took a nosedive not immediately after he took office. That was later. That was after he lifted the state of emergency.
Yeah, but of course, Kadem releases something every week. Somehow things change within the week, according to them.
Okay, but then you can't make this argument.
Right, but according to Kadem, when he made that, his approval rating went up because a lot of people, especially, I will say, a lot of people were very worried about security when Boric took office. Mm-hmm. And then all this stuff started happening, and I think this idea that, Boric is being reactive, whether that's the right move or not, because I don't fucking know. This is a crazy conflict that I am over my head here, and I don't often say that. I feel like I know everything. Just kidding. But it is, his approval rating at least is going up. So like you saying, people being upset because of the state of emergency, that actually is not reflected, at least in the Kadem right now.
Oh, no. I'm not saying that the people are upset, on the contrary, but it's just funny because, of course, most of the, I wouldn't say most, but part of the Mapuche community is just that's not cool. But then at the same time, he goes okay, he's kind of reaching out the olive branch with one hand and then basically reaching the gun with the other hand. It's just we're declaring a state of emergency, but we're trying to fix this. Which is, I get, but the timing is just very unfortunate.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
At this point, I'm gonna just watch. 'Cause I can't.
Oh yeah.
It's not like we're in the U.S. where it's you know what, you could just pass some comprehensive gun laws and it would be fine, where there's an easy solution there. No, this is a very, very complex.
Yeah, in the U.S., you could pass comprehensive gun laws.
I'm just saying, if somebody could, and they would, and they did, then there would be a lot of solved. It's not oh look, 2 + 2 is 4. This is a very complex
I get what you mean.
algebraic equation in which I was not properly explained to by my teacher, and I'm now lost. Yeah. Surely there's a solution, but I'm not going to find it.
Yeah, no, I got you. I mean, so that was kind of unfortunate timing, and you also had, on top of that, you had also a bunch of half-baked ideas, I feel, and miscommunications that are not doing this administration a favor right now. This whole intermediate emergency state, that, to me at least, that seemed to be a no-starter.
That was very political.
It seemed a no-starter in a way, and
I don't think it was anything. It was very political.
It only served for the opposition to take potshots at the perceived incompetence of the government. That was the only thing it did. And another faux pas was the announcement of Janet Vega to take legal action against Hector Yaitul, and then had Manuel Monsalves paddle back on that one. So it was kind of really just
Have a meeting. Get all your people under control.
Now, I think the question here is whether or not also the government should have laid down the law with regards to Mr. Yaitul. I think that's debatable. I do understand the government's efforts to extend an olive branch here. I think it's necessary, which I think also is, I assume it was the same reason that he ended the state of emergency as soon as he took office in March without any concrete measures, in my opinion, in place to mitigate the situation. Personally, I think, yes, the government should have taken action against Mr. Yaitul because
you're threatening the government.
He flat out rejected any attempts by the government to start a dialogue, which I think it's kind of dude, it doesn't get any better than that. If it's not Boric, then good luck with anybody else, you know?
Yeah, you live in Chile, dude.
Really. And even, before this whole emergency state debacle started, he even... Before that, he was we're not going to talk to the government. It was not only he got upset because of the emergency state. No, that was before. He was we're not going to talk to them, you know?
Yeah.
And... I think the government really, really needs to start asserting the power monopoly here, lest they be perceived as weak by some of the more radical elements in the Mapuche cause. And this is true especially for this government that sort of had this kumbaya stigma from the very beginning. You know what I mean?
Trees and peace and
because,
colors
especially
and stuff.
then, it's okay, you need to show that
you got a strong hand.
Yeah, you got a strong hand. Nobody gonna fuck with you.
I would much rather.
So I think another reason that the government should have gone ahead with the indictment against Mr. Yaitul is that it is becoming increasingly clear that the CAM or any other armed branches of the Mapuche cause for that reason do not really enjoy that much support among the Mapuche population. You know, we've mentioned that in previous episodes that up to 70% of the Mapuches do not support the armed resistance branch, and Boric has received rather positive feedback for his plan Buen Vivir from Mapuche organizations so far. So I think it is important for the government to signal that this is not the way.
Right, and this is not the
especially
majority.
now that there are alternatives forming on the horizon, that he was okay, look, we got something to offer now, but this is not the way to go about this. Lay down your weapon, chill. We can work this out. So I think those are the two reasons.
We don't want a civil war.
Yeah, this is the two reasons that you should have gone ahead with this whole thing.
And it wouldn't even be that because it's such a small population. Oh my God.
Right.
Okay.
And now with all this, of course, with all these things that have happened the last weeks, the opposition, of course, is having a fucking field day, and they even tried to file a constitutional charges against Isquia Siches for having neglected her office right after she was actually reinstating the act of emergency. I mean, the gall on those people.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, that initiative was smacked down by no other than the Renovación Nacional, which is Piñera's party, which is
yeah, because it's ridiculous. Because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but it was you wouldn't really have expected support from them, but good that it did.
But at the same time,
I think most of all, what Boric needs to do right now is herding his cats a little bit better and get his cabinet in line and maybe acting a little bit more deliberate with these delicate issues, because I just felt that there was just a lot of just crack the whip and be a bit more thoughtful about, okay, if we're going to do that, we need to have this and this in place. I just didn't feel that was happening. I might be wrong, but this is the impression that I got there.
I think very much it is.
I don't want to swap places with him. Don't get me wrong. I don't know how to solve this.
I saw him the other day, in a live speech, and I did not he's. I love the brother, but he is, you can tell.
Bags under his eyes.
Oh, I almost thought it was I even had my brain conspiracies. I was that's not him.
He's a
my brain conspiracies of that cannot be him, because he looked he's gained weight. He looked so different. I think
I saw a picture of that.
Which, and I literally my brain canon was is this not really him? It's him. His weight fluctuates a lot, which is fine because stress, right? But it's
president of a country.
You're president of Chile. Yeah. Chile is a special country that I love so dearly, but he's got.
He inherited
a
shit
show. What was he voted one of the most 100 influential people in the world right now?
Yeah, by times.
And it's he has almost he has so much, even I would argue, of Latin America on his shoulders right now. Him being the symbol of the quote unquote new Latin America that people have
Cuba?
said.
And Nicaragua? He's getting asked every time. What about Cuba?
And Venezuela?
Oh man, if I was British, just really, you
it just goes in one ear and out. As the person that I am, it just goes in one ear and out the other, and you just walk away at some point.
He can't.
He can't. He could just smile. And cuddle his little Squirtle toy. He was good.
Euphemism.
A euphemism.
A euphemism.
There you go. Anything else for that
one?
No,
that was my soapbox on Araucanía.
Okay, so here we have less, there's a reason we have 2 episodes on the Araucanía, and I'm sure we'll come back to that in future episodes and have even more. So anyway, I'm going to talk about the Digital Gap Zero, which is a government plan which was launched to improve access to internet connectivity, which is super interesting.
Yep.
So the Undersecretary of Telecommunications? What?
Telecommunications.
Tamales. Nutella Communications. Telecommunications, Subtel, presented this Tuesday, which I think was, this Tuesday, which would have been the previous Tuesday from when you're listening, a plan of, quote, Digital Gap Zero 2022 to 2025, which is promoted by the government, which seeks that citizens have access to internet connectivity regardless of their economic state or where they live. So this roadmap seeks to begin to reduce digital gap that exists in the country, which will have as its main focus in areas without connectivity. So focusing first on places without connectivity and then going more broad. And also attempting to deal with the problem of cable theft. Coordinating work.
It's such a Chilean thing, man.
It's not. It's not just Chilean. I'm from the South. I'm from the maybe the less rich places of the U.S. and cable theft is something that I knew people personally did when I was in.
I don't know.
Also,
in Europe, we have all the cables underground. You know what I mean?
No. Cable theft, literally also the television theft.
Walls.
As well, you can through walls, and if you have cable, you're for example, your neighbor pays for DirecTV, you can hack that and get the cable from them and split the cable.
Yeah, it's just I don't know, man. Like in I don't know, man. I don't know about all of Europe.
Y'all just aren't as creative as us.
You just do not see a lot of exposed cables.
No, I'm not. I mean, okay, well, I don't know. That I don't know. I don't live in Germany.
Oh, fine.
How dare you? I don't live in Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, quote, Digital Gap Zero seeks that all inhabitants of our country, Chile, can access quality internet through investment in infrastructure with direct subsidies and with special attention to the red zones that in many cities are still disconnected and isolated without internet. And that was Camila Vallejo, the spokesperson of the government. Wonderful, beautiful lady. Her beauty has nothing to do with how amazing she is, but
Bethany wants her baby.
I have such a girl crush on her. I want to be her. She's so gorgeous. Anyway, so which everybody at this table can very much attest to, I'm sure. No, just going out of Santiago and not having internet at an Airbnb or not even internet, like services on your phone just not working, and you're like, well, I guess I'm isolated. Okay. Anyway, so
talking about zero connectivity.
This is super important, the connectivity, because especially with the pandemic, we have internationally figured out how incredibly essential internet has become to our lives. And my fiance's family has a home in Limache, and they only got internet last year.
Wow.
And that was only because they didn't even lay the cables until last year, and the only reason they laid the cables was because so many people were moving out of Santiago into places like Olmué, Limache to work, and so there was enough
something good to be
funding
said about the
there.
pandemic, huh?
I mean, so okay, so the Undersecretary of Communications, Claudio Araya, warned that when a neighborhood of a population is classified as a red zone, it is stigmatized, and that means that companies are no longer going to sell services there. And that also generates inequity, lack of access, and in the municipalities can help prevent services in lots of different ways. So yeah, this happens a lot, especially, there's so many social implication of these ideas of red zones. For example, because our firefighters are all volunteers, a lot of times they won't go to red zones because they're poorer and they think they're more violent. And so if there's a fire in these red zones, which again, a lot of times their houses are made of more flammable material, it's this huge circular thing.
Not so much different from redlining, actually.
I mean, there you go. So anyway, a couple of months ago, again, this is a quote, I was talking with a counselor from Quilicura and a union leader, and I told them that perhaps the solution is to form a cooperative which enters the area where the companies do not want to enter. He said, and then they would create regulations for connectivity, which seeks to group the bills that are in Congress and attack the gap directly, both that promoted different levels of legislative agenda to reduce the difference of the existing internet services. So having going directly into those places.
A collective, what is a cooperative?
Yeah, a cooperative, like a connectivity cooperative to try to go in there, try to implement these
Socialism intensifies.
I mean, socialism, free internet, how dare you? But I mean, imagine if you had free internet at your house, how much more accessibility could you have? So many more people could work from home. And form pymes do whatever they want. Instead of going all the way to the... I mean, at least from my perspective, there are so many things now that I buy on the internet that I never bought before the pandemic on the internet, like furniture.
Consumption. Yeah.
I mean, let's say you sell pieces of furniture in La Persa Vio Vio, but you travel an hour and a half via metro to get there. If you sell furniture on Instagram on Instagram, I have bought furniture on Instagram that people have made in their homes. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just trying to say,
there's so many. There's
so many opportunities that people didn't have before. You can make so many
arguments about having internet at home, better education because kids don't have to go I don't know where to do the homework. You can actually accept a job that would be almost impossible for you to commute at if you
apply to. Now all jobs are you have to.
You can do teleworking. You just stay home.
You can now create a LinkedIn and update your LinkedIn now because before. Nowadays, you cannot just fill in an application by paper, take it to the place, and apply it. You have to do everything on the internet,
which I'm not opposed to, but
Right, but which takes a long time to do. It takes hours sometimes, as many people know, to put in applications on the internet. Yeah. And let's say you're at the library, and then you gotta haul home because you have to pick up your kid from. I don't have to tell you guys. It's complicated. Internet for everybody is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to say. So there's going to be just different, I'm not going to read all of them, but they have different steps to this. So the idea is starting with projects in these red zones to give internet to the most at-risk places and then building up. So, for example, maybe Independencia, you do have access to internet, but you can't afford internet. So that would be step 2.
Yeah.
Right? So because there are places that don't have it at all.
Makes
gonna
sense.
Put
patch the map first.
Right, exactly. So and in the end, it will be everybody will have connectivity. There's different stages. There's the one stage called the last mile, which again, that's the first stage, bringing it to isolated and rural areas. And they have what this will cost, even broken down. So that says the last mile project will cost about 93,494 million pesos. Then there's the connectivity for education, which is connecting all schools, which they're giving a subsidy of 13,642 million pesos. Then there's the national optical fiber with the connectivity of 202 comunas between Arica and Parinacota in Los Lagos.
Even I don't have that yet.
Yeah, right, and so they're giving money to that. Then there's the fiber optic Austral, which is going to connect the southernmost regions. There's the Tarapacá fiber optic, which is the Tarapacá region, and then the Wi-Fi Chile Gobierno, and it will give free Wi-Fi zones in different areas. And then the last, which is 5G deployment throughout the country, including social compensations to 366 locations that'll benefit from 4G plus or 5G.
But since you're all vaccinated, you already have 5G.
I have it already. No, trust me, I don't. But I read this week also related to this that Chile has the fastest internet in South America, which doesn't surprise me at all.
Yes, I read a comment of somebody made a comment on that one. He was like, somebody tell VTR. So, yep, gotta a point there.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest.
Okay, the thing is not that VTR is slow, but it's like patchy as shit. It's just like it always drops out, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing. To be honest, like, we can bitch, but really, I do my job, which is
bitching on a very high level.
entirely online. Yeah. Now, do I have one day out of 3 months that everything is collapsed? Yes, but to do your like entire job through video calls all day, come on, like how first world am I bitching right now? You know,
So I found this article on BioBio, which I thought was interesting because, you know, since the Boric administration assumed office and before that actually, like this whole idea of free public transportation has become the talk of the town, you know?
Townin'.
And that was, as I said, like an interesting article which I dove into, and I thought I want to tell you guys about it.
Tell me, please.
So, 2017, then Congressman George Jackson, might have heard of him, now Minister Secretary General of the Presidency, which is like
the First Lady.
First.
No, he's the, what is it called? The first husband?
The first
mistress man. We're trying to make a joke because everybody ships him and Boric. They're best friends.
The first man stress.
The first man stress.
Nice. The first man stress.
The first man stress.
So George Jackson, or George Jetson, or whatever you want to call him. So he championed the idea in 2007 of Juan Carlos Munoz, you might have also heard of, who is now Minister of Transportation and Telecommunications. Back then he was, quote-unquote, only a lowly academic. To make Transantiago free to use for the citizens. Now, the idea was to finance this in a three-way split between the government, employers, and also part of the employee's paycheck, you know? The project eventually died on Michel's Bachelet desks, who was the president back then, because the president has the last word when it comes to fiscal matters, like money, president. The reason for killing the project was, and I quote, "It would eliminate any and all incentives for the operator businesses," which it's kind of like
such an old argument.
And also, it's like, you're kind of missing the point here.
Right, it's such an old argument that doesn't, like, everybody when I say everybody, I mean most people who are like politically aware know that's not like a real argument.
And it's
also, not a real argument.
Kind of like, okay, hold on, like you're talking about you want to save the process, but you're losing sight of the bigger picture here.
I think Bachelet had the thing is, she was from the outside perspective, she's such a hypocrite, but then everybody that I know that has worked with her directly is like, she's such a good person, and I get real confused.
I mean, it's politics, and also you got to consider that she had a lot of writing on this one because she was the one who actually gave life to Transantiago in the first place. I mean, it was Lagos' idea, but she was the one who implemented it in her first government. She
breathed life into it like a clay doll.
She was just like, for the first Micro left the lot, she was like, "It's alive!" Mm-hmm. You know, that's how it went down. Now, in 2021, Juan Carlos Munoz, now Minister of Telecommunication and Transportation, and Hugo Silva, who was also an academic, they published a study that was looking into the effects of this, like this being free public transportation. So they did the math. And I was like, why didn't I do the math this time? But, you know, they did the math. And they found that free public transportation in Santiago would have an annual cost of, remember that number, 619 billion pesos.
Uh-huh.
Now, to compare, in 2020, the Treasury spent more than 588 billion in subsidies on the 3 different bus systems within the Red, as it's now called, which used to be Transantiago. Mm-hmm. In other words, with only quote unquote 31 billion pesos more, or if you want to put it in perspective, 5% of the amount spent in 2020, Santiago could actually offer public transportation.
Holy shit! For free. Yes.
Now, for the study, what they did is they gave a group of test subjects at Hirabit with unlimited trips, you know, while at the same time they were keeping tabs on a control group, as you do.
Sure.
Smart, you know, they do science. And the subject of this experiments, they were workers from 13 companies in Santiago, as commuting to work represents 74% of all trips in Santiago during rush hour. Yes.
Sorry, I love this, what you're talking about right now. I'm so excited.
Numbers.
I literally wrote an article about this, actually. So,
Really?
yeah, I did
Oh, so
for
cool.
Chile Today. So, anyway, keep going.
Okay.
But it's super interesting
About
because...
this experiment? that they
Yeah,
did?
yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Okay,
Yeah.
so like feel free to
You
chime
might have
in.
gotten some of my information, actually, from the internet. Unless it was in Spanish.
It was
and
in
wasn't
Spanish.
me. Okay,
It
because
was
I
in
wrote it
Spanish.
in English.
Oh,
But,
awesome.
okay, anyway. It's
So
just
yeah,
excited.
they did that. So and then they found that the number of trips during off-peak hours increased by 23%. But this was, however, that was not compensated by a decrease in trips during rush hour. So basically, it resulted in a net overall increase of trips taken. So basically, the impact would, quote unquote, only be an increase in quality of life. Moreover, the study didn't find any evidence of significant decrease in the usage of cars. And one of the conclusions that they came to is that free public transport reduces the cost of free time activities, so that people are more inclined to go visit someone after work or go to dinner using public transportation.
So their quality of life improves.
Right. This is, I mean,
I love that.
which is great, but hard to put in numbers, So
No, I know, but
there's
for me,
this-
I'm like,
right.
yay! Just for me, of course, being the sentimental person that I am, the idea that like somebody who might have been like, I can't go see my grandmother because I don't have money, can now do that. Like for me, that's like, I will pay public transportation my cost for the rest of my life if it means that other people can go see their grandparents.
No, I mean, this
is
great. It's just like really hard to
sure.
squish into a metric.
I'm just getting sentimental.
It's
I'm just getting sentimental.
So this is one person called Juan Antonio Carrasco of the think tank MOVIT, which stands for Núcleo Milenio Movilidades y Territorios. I'm not even going to try to translate that.
No.
It's a think tank. That's all you need to know. So he kind of raised an interesting question here, which is, why do you want it to be for free? Which is fair,
okay.
Because you need to ask yourself, what is the end here? Like, are we trying to reduce pollution?
Right.
Are we trying to reduce congestion? Or are we, and they didn't bring that up, like how about social issues, which is something I'm going to get to. So because
this is fascinating. I love this so much.
In the end, like, let's not forget, because it's only quote unquote 31 billion pesos, a big part of this would be chiefly be financed by taxpayers' money. So like, this is not something to be taken lightly, even though in return, of course, we wouldn't have to pay for public transport, but not everybody might use public transport in the same way that other people do. So if it was to discourage the use of your own car or to reduce congestions on the street, like in general, this doesn't seem to be the correct way then, if that's what you're aiming for,
I mean, again, it depends. Again, at least the article I read with the groups that they used were people who use the metro the most. And so, again, who is using their cars the most? It's typically people who aren't already using the metro. It's not like people have cars. I guess what I'm saying. People have cars are not the people in the poorer places that are using the metro. It's not like people like, I'm going to be using the metro more in my car less. It's like, no, people who use their cars are just going to continue to use their cars.
Exactly.
And this is,
but
that's what I'm trying to say.
But that's actually the point that I'm making too. The thing is that if you want to reduce like congestions in the street, for example, reduce pollution, then offering a free ticket, if you base yourself on the outcomes of the study, is not the way, because what you do, you're not reducing the car usage. On the contrary, you're going to increase the usage of public transportation, which means more micros and everything.
Right, which actually, in the article that I was writing, it focused more on, like, again, what they are doing, which is making more electric micros, like turning them from gas micros using petrol and diesel to electrical, and then also focusing on wood burning stoves, which is a huge big polluter, which is not actually has anything to do with transportation, but
right. But like in terms of reducing pollution, like changing behavior, there is not gonna that's not
no
fly
but like
this.
If you're going to increase the micros, you have to change the type of micros. That's what I'm trying to say.
So basically, so if you're looking to reduce congestion, free metro ticket might not be the way to go for that. Personally, I think maybe they should consider like something like state subsidy for bikes, or buying or making and putting bigger investment in bike lanes or something.
I mean,
like that.
honestly, if they would just do what Europe does and like let foreigners rent bikes around the city, because right now, unless you have a Chilean credit card, that's the thing. You have to have a route in order to rent a bike here, and so a lot of again, this is good info for you if you're coming to visit Chile. They got a lot of public bikes that you can only use if you have a route.
Yeah.
And so if you're a foreigner coming to visit, there's a lot of bikes that you can't use, and that's like a lot of waste of
Yeah,
money
without a route,
because
you're
a lot of
nobody.
foreigners would come here and tour around the
Oh, yeah,
city
absolutely.
using those bikes. There's like just it's incorrectly
Yep.
the companies using them or creating them did not do a great job, at least in my opinion, in that area.
So-
that you can use that for almost anything.
The company that did not do a great job, in my opinion. Just like
Apply it everywhere.
just like take that soundbite from me and just like add it to like different things.
Everything. Put it on a t-shirt.
The company that did not do a good job.
Not a good job.
In my opinion. Parentheses.
Right. Okay, and as you just said, also it doesn't surprise me either that there was no impact in the usage of personal vehicles because, the use of public transportation in Chile is much more stigmatized than in other countries.
Yeah.
It's just like, because like
Only poor people use their public
like in Europe or in
transportation.
Japan, it's just like in Japan you have like general manager of God knows what taking the metro because why not? It's like who wants
It's
to
more
be-
convenient, and
also,
it
like,
is.
Yeah, like Japan, Tokyo is like a perpetual traffic jam. Like why would you want to do that?
I know so many people like this who are like, oh my God, it takes me 45 minutes to get from Providencia to Las Condes in the morning. And I'm like, and you could do that in like 15 minutes on
Yeah.
the metro.
And maybe even take a bike and it takes you less than that, It's
Right.
like-
But
that's-
but people tell me this all the time. And I like you could, that you could take the metro, right? And it might be crowded, but it will get you there in 15 minutes. Don't complain at me about taking 45 minutes and gas is so expensive.
yeah.
You don't have to pay that.
Yeah, that's another thing, gas getting so expensive, but yeah. And another thing is also like one thing is the stigma of like taking, the poor people's transportation. The other thing is like also a lot of people, as you said, who already own a car do not use the metro because they are also probably like, think about somebody who lives in Chicureo or whatever.
Yeah.
Good luck getting there by public transportation. That's got like, then I get, okay, take your car, I get it, It's
Sure.
like-
If you do it, that's the thing. If you do not have access to the metro, which is a continual problem, it's becoming less and less of a problem as the metro is getting bigger, and it is still growing. But it is a problem.
If you think about it right now, it's no surprise that like the most affluent areas of this town have the worst public transportation.
Well, they don't
coverage
want
because
it.
They don't want it. They don't need it.
And they've actually protested the public transportation in their areas because they think that poor people are going to buy homes there and make the cost of their homes go down. Like, poor people can't afford homes in your fucking place, even if they did live there. Also, fuck you.
I mean,
even if they could.
It would bring crime.
Oh, yeah, it'll bring crime. Poor people, because poor people bring crime and all that bullshit.
So they in the study they also mentioned, not in the study, in the article they mentioned European cities where public transportation is already for free, such as the capital city of Estonia, Tallinn, where the use of personal vehicle actually dropped in the aftermath, but only by 5%, which is really not that much either,
Right.
In Luxembourg, the use of public
I was
transportation
literally going
jumped
to just mention Luxembourg.
Of
I was
course you
about to be
did,
like,
you know?
Luxembourg!
It jumped from 32,000 passengers per day to 45,000 in only a couple of months. Now, it didn't tell me anything about the use of personal vehicles or if that really reduced congestion in the streets. I don't know, but which is also a thing that you have to consider, because if you say, okay, like free transportation based on what we know now is going to be costing so and so much more, they have to take into account, okay, but if this is going to increase demand, this might turn out to be a lot more expensive.
I think this is going to be such
they
an
might have factored this
interesting,
in, but,
fascinating thing because, so for example, with the way that inflation has become in Chile, there has been a curb, at least in what I have seen, again, my own anecdotal experience of okay, because there is something that happens a lot in Latin America is this idea of like, oh, they're the bad Latinos and we're the good Latinos. Like, they're the brown people and we're the white people. Even in the Latino, like, coloristic, like, we're rich and they're poor and they're bad and we're good. And there's all of these different kinds of
hues.
aspects. Like, yeah, there's all these different types of aspects that they use to, like, separate themselves. There's this idea, which, like, you can attest to, that's like, once you get a car, you are now, in Chile, someone. Yeah. You have a car now.
You matter.
And, yeah, and it's, but I do think that with the pandemic and the incredible, insane increase in the cost of buying a car, and then the incredible increase in the cost of gas.
And the incredible increase in
and then
everything,
how
really.
So many people don't even need cars anymore because they can work from home. I am hoping that this metro stigma also goes down, because at some point, like, you have to just be like, I cannot afford, so for example, I've always used the metro living in Chile. And I always thought, like, eventually, when I got, older in Chile, I would buy a car. Now it's impossible for me. And I'm looking at my budget with the inflation the way that it is. And I go, you know what? I need to take less Cabifys. I need to just use the buses more. Mm. And I've always used the buses. But I'm just like, I need to use them more. I know I'm not the only person here. I know I'm not the only person here. And people need to stop putting that shit on their credit cards. And they need to humble themselves. Not that you should have to, quote unquote, humble yourself. But, like, because of the stigma, just fucking do what you need to do. Like, take I'm interested to see the way that all of this is going to operate together. You know what I mean? Like the inflation plus the price of cars with this new generation of Chileans coming in, becoming like my age 30-year-olds who are in that process of trying to buy a house, unable to buy a house, trying to buy a car, incapable of buying a car.
What's a
like
house?
How that is going to affect our generation, because the 40-year-olds like yourself have a completely different type of, and I'm just saying, like, have a completely different Chile to deal with, or had a completely different Chile to deal with than I'm dealing with, / than Pinguino is going to deal with. And so I think it's super interesting because I cannot, like, I have, it was kind of a thing with people in the middle class who, before they would have a kid, they'd get a car because, like, this idea of transporting your kid and you don't want them to take a metro.
Your minivan.
My friends who make good money as lawyers don't have cars and they're having kids, and it's because they cannot afford to both have a kid in this country where education is not free and have a car.
I have a good friend of mine. He's German. He is married, got 2 kids. He got a well-paying job, but he doesn't have a car, but not because he could. I think he could afford to. He's just like, no, I'm good.
No, I mean, and that's the thing. It isn't essential. I'm not trying to make the argument that it's essential. I'm just saying, like, there was that perception that it's like those kind of stages of life.
But that's what I mean. Is like he's breaking the mold there. Because he's not Tilling. He's German.
He doesn't have that like shame there.
It's like, I don't need a car.
I don't have that shame there because, again, the fact that there even exists public transportation here for me is the most fascinating thing in the world. Because, again, I'm where they rode horses down the street, basically. Well,
there's a number 5 horse line.
No, I mean, everybody had a car, but it was just like, again, you had to have a car because if you didn't have a car, you didn't have a job.
That's also the U.S. for you. Yeah.
But that's just the U.S. But also, like, I'm from the farmlands.
Gotcha.
So the fact that there's public transportation for me is like a huge just miracle of engineering in general.
What is this?
And like community building. So, like, again, not the stigma. And then, of course, my fiance just doesn't give a fuck about it. He's the most laid-back person ever, so he's just not going to let perception dictate the way that he lives. And so for us, it's like, why do we need this? But anyway, all I'm trying to say is the stages of life, the way that millennials live versus Gen Z, and all these things are changing. And so I'm really interested to see how all of these different shifts play into. And so maybe with this particular piece of research, it doesn't decrease, like, it doesn't necessarily help the environment, but maybe the way that society is turning is going to be helping the environment.
Get there, But, like talking about the stigma again, I mean, you're looking at cities like Luxembourg, who, had like this insane jump from like 32,000.
Is that not a country?
What?
Isn't Luxembourg a country?
Yeah, it's a city-state.
Oh.
Pretty much a city-state in surrounding areas.
I was I thought it was a country. Okay,
it is a country.
Okay, but
so coming back to Luxembourg, saying, okay, you see this jump from 32,000 to 45,000 passengers in a day, but again, like we're saying that this is a country where public transportation is not nearly as stigmatized as it is here, and I was a bit surprised that the article didn't touch at all on what I think is the most obvious reason here, which is reducing social cost, right? Because, I mean, let's remember that for a large swath of the population, the cost of public transportation is proportionally much higher than for you or for me, and it was actually the straw that broke the camel's back in October 2019, if you remember.
Who wrote this article?
It was, I don't know, I didn't take notes there, but, like, it was not really, it was funny, like, they were more talking about, like, reducing car usage and pollution, which is fair, but I'm just like, don't you remember October 2019?
I literally thought that was going to be your conclusion, was like, the
reason that we... My conclusion is going to be that, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was the conclusion of this article because, like, again, like, that is such a... That's the whole... Exactly what you said. That's the whole reason we had the estallido was this increase in transportation, and we've already seen it again, and it's... debilitating to some families.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, here's my personal conclusion to this thing, because they didn't do their job apparently.
God dang it.
So maybe free public transportation for all wouldn't be very productive, and so far that it really doesn't reduce congestion or pollution on the one hand, and on the other hand, it will make the transport also free to those who don't really need it, or actually don't really care how much they pay for it or use it, so that would place an additional burden on the taxpayer. But I think what we could consider is like a targeted subsidies for people that are most in need.
But I mean, it's the exact same thing that they're doing for students, right? If you're a student, like you're a university student, you can go and you have to literally stand in line. Like at I don't know if that he says, I don't know where you stand in line, but you go to a place and you stand in line and you get your special beep, but you have to go do it, right? You have to apply. What I'm trying to say is there could be a process of like, if you're in the tax bracket, which already there is proof that you're in certain tax brackets, you already get certain benefits anyway, you could already be looped into that.
There is this, what was it, the family registry, what's it called? The Registro Familia, that they've been using lately a lot to hand out welfare checks and something like that, something that you have to register in. But then again, this is something that Chile works, that really works well in Chile, something that it would be absolutely unimaginable in Europe, because everything's centralized. There's
so many different arms in Chile. It's like a giant weird spider.
Like you have a digital footprint everywhere. The government knows where you are, what you did, because it's all centralized, which is terrifying on the one hand, and on the other hand,
it is both centralized and completely uncentralized at the same time. It's super weird.
Is it?
And when I mean uncentralized, I'm just saying like there's so many different departments that are unconnected for no reason, because you do have a root. Like there's no reason why, for the example, my SII, which is my taxes, should not automatically be connected.
There is a reason for that. I mean, there is a reason that, for example, in Germany there's something which is called the prohibition of cooperation between certain arms of the law enforcement, which is a remnant of the Second World War, because people were just like, okay, we do not want the government to have full control of
I understand that, except for the fact that when I'm applying for my immigration status, I have to scan
it's super
document.
inconvenient. I'm just like
dispute that. They already have to have access to that information anyway, but I have to physically scan in documents that are available at the tax center that they do not have communication. Like, I'm an immigrant. I don't get privacy anyway.
I get it. It's
so, I would really rather just sign off my thing and be like, you can have it.
No, I mean, dude. I get it. I mean, there's really ups and downs to that. And in that respect, I think Chile is just perfect, because we're like,
Chile's just perfect. Oh my God, everybody stop right now.
Yeah, it's just perfect because people are just
it.
like, okay, we need a registry. Like, we need to get to all them poor peoples. If there only was there is a registry. I mean, they would have to sign up for that, but okay.
Right. There exists a register. There's already benefits in place in which, because if you're already in this benefit bracket, then you would have this extra benefit.
Right, and they could be like, okay, we're all gonna send you a special beep card.
Yeah, I like it. Let's do it. Let's do it right now.
Giorgio, you're listening to this? Giorgio
Boric. Also, Boric, if you're listening to this, I love you, brother, but you really gotta get an English teacher. And I am one, and I got a master's degree in English, and I'm your biggest fan, so
But you can't come to her wedding, because that'd be.
Don't come to my wedding. It would ruin my wedding, because I would be so much trying to flirt with Boric. Like, Mao knows. Like, don't you do it. I have Slytherin in my heart. I'm attracted to power. Don't you let me get near.
Yeah, and I guess Irina Karamanos will be really happy about that.
She's a beard.
Oh, then we wouldn't really care if you flirt with her.
Then it really wouldn't get very far with him either. No, I have a
George
crush on
Jackson
people.
standing there on the far side of the room, just like, bitch.
I've known him longer. You don't even
trouble
know.
For that.
Oh my gosh, we am. Okay, we am. That's where we are right now. We am.
She's a really good English teacher.
I am such a good English teacher. I have a master's degree. I really am a good English teacher. If you're looking for one, contact me. Call me, bitch. Okay, so
that's
what you got. Okay,
I
have observatory news. If you don't know, friends and family, so Chile has some of the most prolific observatories of stars in the world, because we have some of the most cloudless nights. It's also basically no ozone layer. So there's a lot of really big benefits to studying stars in Chile, and I've actually met a lot of astronomers who have like gotten their doctorates here, who have studied here, like postdoctorate and everything's pretty cool. And there's actually like really interesting places you can go to like do like star ceremonies and stuff. It's really weird.
I mean, the Atacama Desert is the place to be for that.
It's the place to be. Anyway, so there's the ALMA, ALMA Observatory, and it's going to double its capacity. And it was actually out of work for a little bit, or at least very much almost closed its work because of the pandemic. Obviously, stargazing and star research was not at the priority.
Not essential.
It wasn't essential.
Yeah.
So it's now running at full force. And it was completely shut down at some point, and it's now hoping to double its capacity to specifically research black holes. So the director said, we're looking to enhance the capabilities of ALMA over the next 10 years, and that's Sean Doherty. And so the Atacama Village, as you were saying, Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array, which is ALMA, which is the largest astronomical project in existence. It's a single telescope of revolutionary design with 66 radio telescopes, and it, of course, is in the Atacama Desert in northern Chile.
The costs were astronomical.
Adorable.
Thank you.
Doherty said that he's hoping to increase imaging capabilities by a factor of 2, providing a more detailed look at the universe and black holes, which I guess a factor of 2 is a lot. I don't know.
Well, my science brain says, yeah.
Okay. And he said, I think it's going to be quite the renaissance in observation of black holes in general. I think it's going to be a great motivator and really enhance our understanding of black holes and black hole physics. And I'm such a child because I'm like, black holes.
I know. And I'm just waiting for Uranus to make an appearance.
Yeah, I know. So it takes a lot of, obviously, logistics and science to even take pictures of black holes. And it set ALMA down a lot of progress after the observatory shut down because of COVID, and it took a lot of months to actually get it up and running. But it is now running at full force, and they're going to be at the forefront of black hole research coming in the next few years. So there's that. Anyway, so that's what. So we were not planning on doing just an episode about news, my friends, but it's sort of like, an Araucanía update and everything, and there's been a lot of things happening in Chile. So we'll bring you part 2 of trains very soon. If you were looking forward to trains, don't worry. It's a-coming down the tracks.
Choo-choo.
It's a-coming round the mountain when she comes, right? So it'll be here soon, and we hope to see you very soon. Remember that we have a Patreon. We have a $5 level and a $10 level.
Yes, sir.
Both of which give you access to events in Santiago. Not only do you get discount on events which pay for themselves, but also tips for different places to eat, places to brunch, places to go visit, just different types of tips in general living in Chile or visiting Chile. We got you covered.
And access to our Discord.
Access to our Discord. And our asses
on Discord.
Our asses on Discord.
But that will be the $100 level.
That's the $100. You're only $100 level for access to your ass? Okay, anyway,
my ass
moving
is not
on.
That pretty.
Okay, yeah, it's gotten late. We love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and win it out.
Gringo out.
Bye.
Bye. The Chile Today podcast is hosted by Lennart Kluge and Bethany Francis and produced by Diego Pinguino Rivera. For more information on the news topics you heard today, check out chiletoday.cl.